Whether it's a youth, amateur, or professional sporting event, moms are the biggest fans in attendance. From orange peels at halftime to batter's box cheers, a mom's dedication is unmatched. This Mother's Day, show her how much you've appreciated all the support she's given you with 1-800-Flowers.com. Right now, when you get ahead of the Mother's Day rush, 1-800-Flowers will give you an exclusive 30 for 30 offer. 30 assorted tulips for just $30. With a bright and beautiful mix of orange, yellow, and pink blooms, these assorted tulips are guaranteed to make her smile. Assorted tulips are the perfect way to surprise all of the moms in your life. Wife, aunt, sister, grandma. Tulips from 1-800-Flowers are picked at their peak from premier farms and shipped overnight to ensure freshness. 30 assorted tulips for only $30. It's an amazing offer, but you have to hurry because it expires Tuesday. Just pick your delivery date and 1-800-Flowers will handle the rest. Don't put this off, guys. Order today from 1-800-Flowers.com. It's what Mom would want you to do. To order 30 stunning assorted tulips for only $30, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/Wingo. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/Wingo. Order today and save at 1-800-Flowers.com/Wingo. Offer expires Tuesday.
Delta is here to help people in pursuit of their goals. And with the ease of booking travel on the Fly Delta app, pursuing your goals has never been easier. You'll also get notifications as you go, giving you peace of mind throughout your journey.
Golic and Wingo with you on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. Hope you're having a Monday to remember, a good one as the work week is back in full force. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. It is the Monday after the NFL draft. You know, it's really, we're in a little cradle here, a little sweet spot of sports. We had the big draft, the NFL draft over the weekend. Got the NBA playoffs to take us through the week, and of course we got the Derby coming up on Sunday.
Yeah, we do. Second round of both NBA and NHL playoffs really getting going now. The Derby this weekend and the draft. I'm now interested to see where the draft will be next year.
Yeah, remember it's down to 5 cities.
Yeah, because it went 2 years in Chicago, then it went to Philly. A lot of people thought it was so good that maybe you go a second year in Philly. They didn't. They go to Dallas. It was great again in Dallas. Every city wants it.
Yeah.
I even asked the commissioner when he was on with Mike and I on Friday, what's the thought process of giving it to a city that doesn't have a football team? You know, just pick not pick an arbitrary city, but and he thought, there's a lot of football cities out there, and I would say, I would imagine you take care of them first and go around the league, as best you can. So I don't think that's really in the offing. We know it'll be in L.A. at some point.
Sure.
We know it's going to be in Vegas.
Well,
I believe it would be in Vegas.
Yeah.
Who knows if the NFL will want to go there. I hope they get over that and go there when the stadium's done there for the Raiders. So we're pretty sure, for sure it'll be in L.A., but I'm interested to see where it'll be next year.
Well, I talked to Roger before we did our interview on Thursday night of the draft, and he says basically it's down to 5 cities for next year, and Vegas is one of them.
Okay, there you go.
Cleveland, Canton would be the other one.
Right. He did mention that.
Denver is also under consideration.
Okay.
Kansas City is under consideration.
All right,
as is
that.
Nashville.
Oh wow, those are all
those
good
are
ones.
those are the 5. Pseudo finalists. Basically, we'll find out in a few weeks. But those are the ones that they're narrowing it down between. And I will say this: Dallas was great, but I got to say Philly was off the charts.
Philly was off the charts. Dallas was really good.
It was really good. No problem.
Philly. I guess I shouldn't say it did surprise me a little bit how I knew it would be good.
Yeah.
It's really, really working when you barnstorm and go to other cities.
It was right downtown. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was right on the steps of the art museum.
Yeah, it was.
So that sort of gave it more of a. Because Arlington, look, it was great in Dallas. Don't get me wrong, it was wonderful. But Dallas is to the east, Fort Worth is to the west.
Spread out a little bit.
Arlington's in the
Exactly
middle.
right, yeah.
You had to work a little harder to get there.
I agree.
Boy,
oh boy, these next 5, that's nice. And let me tell you, if it's in Nashville, Jason Fitz, watch out. We're all staying at your place.
And we're all going to we'll all lose a beer off a catfish
there
at some
you go.
point. But
Exactly
assuming that the Preds are back in the playoffs, which we think they will.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's the situation there. Denver is a little curious because the snow could
it'll be
there.
it'll be cold.
But Denver's a great downtown stadium.
Denver's a great
right
area.
downtown,
I love
which
Denver,
would be great.
Obviously.
So we'll find out hopefully in the next couple of weeks where we're going next year. Meanwhile, we're going right now with what's trending. And LeBron James's streak is trending, as in he still never lost a first-round playoff series. Game 7, all he did was drop 45 on the Pacers. Second time in his career he's dropped 45 in a Game 7. No one has ever done that before.
A couple of things that are pretty amazing here is he led the team in points, rebounds, and assists. It's the 20th time in his career he led the team outright in those 3 categories. No other player has done it more than 6 times. That would be Tim Duncan.
Right.
Michael Jordan did it 1 time. The other, which is an amazing stat, the other amazing thing is this is the first time since 2008 that a LeBron team is underdogged.
Yeah.
in a playoff series. They're underdog. They're plus 190 according to Westgate against the Toronto Raptors, who have played little brother to LeBron for a while now, and this is their chance. There's always that. There's the father-son,
right,
when the son finally beats the dad, and then there's the brother thing. When can the little brother overtake the big brother? Yeah. And there is a good opportunity for the Raptors to do that this year.
Well, what did LeBron say after Game 7 when someone asked him about Toronto? I'm burnt. I'm tired. I can't talk about anything. So if not now, when? For Toronto. You have home court advantage. You've been sitting there waiting for a while. You have the better team. Let's be clear. You have the better team. You just don't have the best player.
Right.
So if it's not going to happen now for Toronto against Cleveland, it may never happen. And we'll get into that with some of our NBA guests in just a minute. Meanwhile, for those of us that of a certain age love the idea of the 76ers and the Celtics always meeting in the playoffs, the 80s. You know, there's that classic series where Larry Bird and Dr. J got into a fight with each other all those years ago.
Amazing.
We got it again, Sixers and Celtics. Their 20th postseason series tonight, the most series meetings between two teams in NBA history.
6 times in the 50s, 6 more in the 60s, 4 times in the 80s. The last 2 times they met were 2002 and then 2012. Celtics won 3 of the 4 meetings against the 76ers this season, but Kyrie was on the court for all of those, and the 76ers have won 11 straight when Joel Embiid has played. So I just flat out think the 76ers are the better team here. Give all the credit in the world to Boston getting out of that first series without Kyrie, what Brad Stevens is doing there, and the young and Tatum and Brown, the guys that the studs that have. Brown got that hammy, though.
It's a problem.
So we'll have to wait and see where that's going to go. But, again, I love the young talent on that team. Good win for them in the first round, but I don't think they're going any further. I think the 76ers take them here.
Well, you know, it's interesting. The 76ers have sort of just said, what did the Phillies say in 2008 when they won it? Why can't us? Right? Wasn't that their slogan? Why can't us? I feel like the Sixers are like, yeah, we're young, but so what? We got 2 of the best players, and what the hell? Let's do this. You know what I mean? Let's just go all in. So we'll see what happens. But the Sixers are going to be fun. This should be a really, really fun series to watch. Well, who gets to define what hustle is?
Boy, oh boy.
Usually it's the boss. The Dodgers' Cody Bellinger was pulled from the middle of a game due to lack of hustle, according to his manager, Dave Roberts.
And a Rookie of the Year last year.
Yes, he was. And he hit a ball into the gap, and he sort of cruised into second.
Right.
Dave Roberts felt it should have been a triple. So he told reporters after the game he was pulled because of a lack of hustle.
How about that?
Somewhat surprising.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, Dave Roberts said, I felt there wasn't hustle on the play. He basically said he plays every day. There's a certain expectations for the way we have to play the game. When you don't abide by that, we'll get somebody in there that will. It's pretty simple. Bellinger was a little stunned by this, didn't realize for the reason he got pulled.
No, look, the Dodgers have not come out great out of the gate.
Right.
Let's be clear about that. They're 3 games under 500, and sometimes you do something like this to shake the entire team up.
Right.
And Cody Bellinger is one of the stars of the team. There's no question about that. So when Dave Roberts does something like this to one of the stars of the team, it gets everybody's attention. At least that's what he's hoping, right? I mean, this is one of those it sounds like more than an issue with Cody Bellinger.
Right.
It sounds like this is, okay, we as a team are underperforming.
Right.
Let's just show you I'm not happy with anything that we're doing. I mean, Bellinger, his rationale was pretty good.
Yeah, it was.
He said, look, we're down 4 runs. It's 2 outs. I don't want to make the third out.
He said
on third base, which is absolutely a true baseball action.
He said it took a hard swing. I went down on one knee on the swing, so he didn't get out of the batter's box as quick as he would like to. And then he added what you just said.
Yeah.
He didn't want to risk it going to third to make that out. He said, I play hard every day. I feel like I hustle every day. But he did say he saw what he saw. In talking about his manager, it's all good. So he wasn't going against him.
No,
he wasn't complaining about it. He was just saying, gave a reason for why he only ended up at second, feels he plays hard every day.
This does just reek a little bit of, okay, I'm going to go at you, so everybody else is going to say, whoa, he's getting everybody's attention. And for those of you that didn't see the movie Heavyweights that came out of the 90s with Ben Stiller, trying to get kids to be in better shape, that made us think of this.
Attention campers, lunch has been canceled today due to lack of hustle. Deal with it.
So, always be a bummer for me if all of a sudden one of the meals is canceled.
Yeah,
I'd be mad.
Well, you'd make up for it. By the way, I am amazed at you because you are in great shape now. You really are. And it ticks me off.
Yeah.
But every day you bring in like 1,000 sugary snacks.
Well,
for everybody else.
I bring them in for everybody else. Little Debbie's a wonderful, wonderful.
But how do you buy all that stuff and bring it in and not just?
Well, it's called discipline, Trey.
No, I don't have any.
It's called discipline.
I don't have any.
I was once one of the greatest athletes in the world when I was a professional football player.
Well,
you know what?
Wait,
I can't.
I'm sorry.
I can't
what did
even
you say that again? Say it again.
I can't.
Say it again. Just do it for me. Say it again.
I was once one of the greatest football players in the world, or greatest athletes. I can't even say it correctly the second. I can't even say it with a straight face.
You were a professional athlete.
I was.
Let's put it that way. You were.
So I should just stop there?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You were.
I bring it in so everybody can enjoy the Little Debbie's. Enjoy them all.
Oh, stop with the damn clock. We're talking about snacks.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Fucking food. You can stick that
goodness,
clock.
give me a break.
Yeah.
All right, ESPN NBA reporter Royce Young now joins us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. What an intro he's getting. Get the feeling of being rewarded with gold status at Shell with the Fuel Rewards program. Download the Fuel Rewards app, join, and start saving 5 cents a gallon today. Royce covered the Jazz Rockets game last night for us. First and foremost, let's deal with the game you were at, Royce. It certainly seemed like the Rockets did whatever they want whenever they wanted in that contest.
Yeah, I think that there was some elements of fatigue maybe for the Utah Jazz. Just 36 hours before that, they were in Salt Lake City trying to finish off Russell Westbrook taking 43 shots, and what Oklahoma City was doing, that was a really physical, difficult series. And for this Jazz team, they lose Ricky Rubio in that game, and they don't have him in game one against Houston. You've got the Rockets, who are the best regular season team in the NBA, 65-win team, just basically sitting there waiting on you. That's a tough spot to be in. And, the Rockets, with what they do offensively, the Jazz had basically the best defense in the NBA this year, but when you've only got 36 hours to transition from Oklahoma City's offense to trying to figure out how to guard Houston's offense, there's not a lot of time there. And that's something really Quinn Snyder kind of talked about after the game yesterday, is that now they've got 2 days off between 1 and 2. And any time you go on the road in the NBA in a playoff series, you're just looking to get one of two games. And now they've got these 2 days off, and they've got to really prioritize locking in and figuring out what kind of adjustments they can make, because Houston just did whatever they want. The Jazz kind of settled in a little bit after going down 25 in the first half. They settled in, got kind of in the flow of the game in the second half, but it was too little too late.
Well, yeah, I mean, they won that second half 57-46, but they were getting destroyed anyway, so we don't know what the want to was on the Houston part of the second half of that. And as you mentioned, undermanned. They have a couple of days now to kind of catch their breath. What's the situation with Ricky Rubio?
Yeah, it's this hamstring issue, something that Rubio dealt with towards the end of the season. It's really unknown right now, Mike, if it's a re-aggravation or what it is. But our Adrian Wojnarowski reported that could keep him out up to 10 days. Which, if that's the case, I mean that's potentially all 4 games if it goes that way. If this is a sweep scenario, so the Jazz miss Rubio, and it was evident what he brings to the team. In that first-round series against the Thunder, he was fantastic in that series. Just in terms of the Jazz offense, he really engineers it. And while Donovan Mitchell has been a revelation, the guy is absolutely sensational. I wouldn't even say he's a budding superstar at this point. He just flat-out is a superstar. The guy is fantastic. But it's a lot of responsibility to put on his shoulders to say, hey, here's the ball in your hands for the majority of this game. You got to figure it out. You not only have to score, but you got to set everybody else up. And that's a lot to ask for a rookie.
NBA reporter Royce Young with us. Speaking of shouldering the load, what more can you say about LeBron James? I mean, either if at this point you don't respect what he's been able to do with this Cleveland Cavaliers team, you just simply don't respect him. 45 points for the second time in a Game 7. That's never happened before. He takes them out of this series into the second round with a team that not once, any time in any of these 7 games did any other Cav player score at least 20 points.
Yeah, 13-0 now, Trey, in opening round series. That's there's a lot of absurd LeBron James stats that you can go through, and you can just pick them out. I mean, whichever one you want to do, whether it's the consecutive finals appearances, whatever you want to do. But that one right there to me is one of the most impressive ones, because the mental focus that takes, just not to have one bad year where you just get upset. And this seemed like the one. Like,
right.
Like you mentioned, this is a Cavs team that was really kind of outgunned in a lot of different ways. And for LeBron to basically, there was that moment that everybody saw on TV where he looked at his family and said, like, I'm playing the whole game. and he didn't end up going all 48. He played 35 consecutive minutes at one point. But the guy is, I mean, we saw him bleed, so we do know he is at least human. We saw him bleed in Game 6. But, before that happened, I think we were still all having our doubts, even though this is his 15th year. But the guy is just, he's absurd. And here's the credit I think that we give LeBron James. They walk into a series against the Toronto Raptors, the best team in the Eastern Conference, and we're all sitting here. There's plenty of people that are picking the Cavaliers because we're just like, LeBron is LeBron, and you got to give him a chance because the guy's that amazing.
Yeah, I think people will just pick them until Toronto can prove that they can overtake them. And You're right, Cleveland has LeBron. Yeah. We're talking to Royce Young, ESPN NBA reporter, who definitely has a pulse not only on the NBA but on the Oklahoma City Thunder as well. The news out of there, Carmelo Anthony didn't really like the role playing that he did coming off the bench. Can opt in for $28 million, saying it's really not about the money, even though he has kind of been about the money through his career. What do we think his next move will be?
Yeah, things got really interesting for the Thunder one day after their season ended, Mike, at exit interviews. Everybody around the league, basically going back to training camp, believed that Carmelo Anthony was assured to opt into that $28 million final year of his contract. And now there's been some doubt cast on that. And I think Carmelo Anthony basically laid it out there that right now what he's going to weigh as it comes up on this is his basketball happiness versus $28 million. And because, from everything I was told in Oklahoma City, Carmelo bought into his role. He did what he was asked. He never griped once. The chemistry in the locker room was fantastic. But I think that silently Carmelo Anthony was harboring something, and he really wasn't all that happy with what the Thunder were asking him to do because, quite frankly, he wasn't that great at it. And, a lot of people talked about, can he be Olympic Melo? Can we finally see Olympic Melo? And he was Olympic Melo. He just wasn't good at it. He missed open shots. He wasn't comfortable playing power forward on a full-time basis. And now I think Carmelo Anthony's got to sit back. He basically said, I am not coming off the bench. Yeah. At 34 years old, I think everybody saw in the playoff series against the Jazz, it's time for a role adjustment for Carmelo Anthony, but he's not ready to go that direction. So he's got a lot to sort out on his own here.
I think we'd all like to be comfortable enough with our finances to say at 34, I can turn down $28 million. I mean, that's an amazing thing in and of itself, as Royce Young, our NBA reporter, is with us, who covers the Thunder as well as everything else going on in the NBA. So then the question becomes, this move may hamstring a couple of organizations, right? If he does opt in for $28 million, what can the Thunder do to sort of get a better team going? And if he doesn't, is he just waiting to find out what happens with LeBron in Cleveland?
Yeah, look, Trey, that's essentially what this is going to play out as. And I think it was pretty clear. Look, Carmelo Anthony was a pro all season long. There was no complaints about him whatsoever. But I do think if he decides to opt into that $28 million, which again, I think that's the most likely scenario, the Thunder could have a little bit of a toxic situation on their hands. And we could kind of see what played out with Dwayne Wade in Chicago, in that Carmelo could say, I'm opting in for $28 million, but I still don't want to be here. And he still holds his no-trade clause. And so he could give the Thunder a list of teams. He could say, I would want to go here. But who's really trading for Carmelo Anthony on a $28 million deal at this point? So it really could then come down to a buyout negotiation for the Thunder and Carmelo. And, both sides, I'm sure, want to avoid any sort of, back and forth, especially something in the media where things are leaking out. But it could get resolved. I think that maybe, Billy Donovan, one of the things that he is an absolute master at is managing ego and managing relationships with players. You talk to anybody that's ever been coached by Billy Donovan, that's what they say he's absolutely remarkable at. And I think it was evident that he did a pretty great job of it this season because Carmelo Anthony apparently wasn't that happy and he didn't hear a peep about it. So, it's about to get real interesting this summer for OKC.
How interesting will it get with Paul George?
Yeah. Very. And, here's the thing about it, Mike. Paul, with what he said at exit interviews, was basically consistent with what he has been saying, starting with talking with our Rachel Nichols and saying how he liked Oklahoma City. He said, quote, they checked all his boxes. He was even asked about the Los Angeles element, and he kind of tried to brush it off, and he said, that's not going to be the only deciding factor, the fact that that's his hometown. He's got a lot to think about. He talks as if he's a guy that really is leaning to staying in Oklahoma City, but I think that there's an emotional factor there. I think that he kind of feels a little bit like the season was disappointing. I think he really has a strong relationship with Russell Westbrook. That's something I think that surprised a lot of people, is how quick they took to each other, both on and off the floor. But there's a month and a half or so before he's got to sit down and actually make this decision. And, that's a lot of time for things to change, for him to weigh pros and cons. But as it sounds right now, he sounds like a guy that wants to stay in Oklahoma City.
Well, look, the NBA offseason is almost always sometimes more interesting than the regular season. This one could be really choiced if we have Paul George, Melo, and LeBron all there, maybe to collaborate to find some place to go. And it will make things fascinating, as it always is, for the offseason in the NBA. Royce, we appreciate your time. Thanks, man.
You bet, guys.
Thanks, Royce.
$28 million. Nah, I'm good.
Well, I mean, listen,
there, right?
he's done things about the money before, and you know what? Yeah. That's fine. That's not a rip on him at all. But he has made a lot of money, and if he didn't like his role or want to be more of a role, then he may want to leave there. But he'd opt out of the $28 million. He ain't getting $28 million anywhere else. At least I wouldn't think so.
No, there's not possible.
There's no way that's happening. I was trying to get to Royce. We run out of time. He's an Oklahoma grad. I was asking about his thought process. What would have thought of Baker Mayfield? Yeah. Do you know the other 3 number 1 picks were from Oklahoma?
Troy Aikman.
No. From Oklahoma.
Well, he started at Oklahoma.
Nah, he was UCLA. Yeah.
Okay, so
Oklahoma. They had 4.
Number one
overall. They had 4.
Boy, that's a good one.
Well, the one is pretty easy. He's still playing, and he gets hurt all the time.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Sam Bradford.
Bradford.
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
And he's made more money than anybody.
Yes. The 2 before that, 1980, a running back.
Billy Sims?
Yep.
Yeah, there you go.
1976, defensive lineman.
Oh, was one of the Selman brothers.
Leroy
Selman, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
63, if I'm not mistaken.
What number?
Yeah, was Leroy Selman 63? Pretty sure he was. Yeah, Brett's looking that up. Meanwhile, Pregnant Pause on
there you
radio.
Go. Yeah.
Golic and Wingo, presented by 1-800-Flowers.com. This Mother's Day show your biggest fan just how much she means to you with 30 assorted tulips for only $30 from 1-800-Flowers.com. To order, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN.
That was the question, though, about Leroy Selman, what his number was?
Yeah.
That was it? That's what you... Brett, his time is precious back there. You wanted him to look up the jersey number?
Hold on. You think Brett's time is precious?
Of Leroy Selman.
That's cute.
The jersey number.
And Brett? 63. Thank you very much.
There you go.
Boom!
Right.
Everyone in the neighborhood knew about Bobby. Bobby, the basketball boy, they called him. Bobby wanted to go pro someday, so he was always out in the driveway shooting hoops. But one day, his mom came out and told him,
"Hey, your wife wants you to take out the trash?"
His mom was visiting, and Bobby was a grown man. He had kind of missed his window. Plus, no one had ever seen him actually make a basket. But on the other hand, Bobby had heard how Geico could save him money on car insurance, so he switched and saved. So it was all good.
Golic and Wingo with you on ESPN Radio and ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, including our next guest, who, despite having the handicap of having to work with me for 7 years covering the NCAA women's basketball tournament, still somehow had a feature article about her in the New York Times over Saturday's weekend edition. Doris Burke Has Game was the name of the article, and Doris Burke, our outstanding NBA analyst, joins us now on Golic and Wingo. All right, Doris, first of all, congratulations on all the accolades. Well-deserved, as always. But let's talk a little bit about LeBron here for a second. He basically said, I'm toast, I'm fried, I got nothing. The question then becomes, what will he have when Game 2 rolls around? Or the Series 2, Game 1 against Toronto rolls around?
Listen, I think he'll be ready. I'm not surprised he's exhausted. It was unusual yesterday. He's a guy, all of these guys understand, how much they have to take care of their bodies, hydrate, et cetera, et cetera. But I've covered, as you know, LeBron for a long time, Trey. And one thing yesterday, I don't know whether his cramping issues are back, but the amount of fluid in front of him, the amount he was drinking, just seemed different to me. I may be crazy, but then he goes back in with some minor cramping. So it is something I think he's going to have to be careful with, because the minutes that he's playing are, off the charts for somebody in his 15th year and what he's able to achieve. I don't know if he's marching closer in people's minds to Michael Jordan, but certainly when this guy's career is all said and done, I just don't know how he's not top 3 all time. It's hard for me not to see that.
And again, this coming off of playing in all 82 regular season games. Doris, you mentioned you've seen him a lot, been around him a lot. And I know one of the things when I'm doing a game, I like to watch the sideline, stuff that's not seen on TV of how people are reacting. And I'm sure you do the same thing. So how does LeBron look? How does he look in timeouts? How does he look just from facial expression to body, how that looks over the years you've seen him? Or just maybe is it more now of how tired he actually is?
Well, I feel it's funny, Mike. I'm sorry, and Trey, I called you Mike. Listen, I feel like the man's indestructible. When I was on the road and I actually saw him bleed, I remember texting my brother. I'm like, oh, my God, LeBron's bleeding. I think that's the first time I've seen that. Like, when you're watching him, Mike, it's like you're watching this indestructible force. I was listening to a Zach Lowe podcast. And this is how in awe anybody is who's around the league every day and watches LeBron, every day. Like Zach Lowe on a podcast said, I think you could take a machete to LeBron's head and he wouldn't feel it. Obviously, just the extreme reaction to what we see on a daily basis. As I watched him yesterday in the sideline, in the huddles, I saw nothing different other than, the amount of fluids he was taking in. So I don't see these signs of incredible exhaustion. I'm just listening to what he's saying in the postgame to Dave McMenamin. And Dave's thought was appropriate. As the series move on, is he required to do more? And frankly, is that going to be a situation where it's simply him doing more or him doing as much as he can is not enough for that particular team? I don't know the answer to that. We'll see what Toronto has for them.
Well, that is the question, right, Doris, as whether or not Toronto can finally be – I mean, if not now, when for Toronto, right? They've got LeBron saying he's burnt. This is not obviously a team around him that can give him a lot of supporting help. Not one time in this 7-game series did anybody else on this Cavs team get to 20 points in a game. Toronto has home court. They have rest. If not now for Toronto to beat Cleveland, then when?
Trey, it's a fascinating thing for me to watch. Like, I was so happy I had Game 6 on the road in the Washington-Toronto series, because to me, if Toronto had lost that game, in my mind, they were not true contenders for the Eastern Conference title, because teams that are the best in the East, have the second best record in the league, have got to be able to win on the road. And I understand Washington wasn't a typical 8th seed, but to me, it's time. You have, an all-star backcourt. I do think you probably could use more productivity on the offensive end at the 3 position. I do think Toronto's a team that could use more shooting, but their style is better suited to today's NBA. There's still a lot of pick and roll for DeMar DeRozan, and he's brilliant in those situations. I thought Kyle Lowry's play, Trey, on the road was crucial. Remember how much criticism this guy has taken. And in the second quarter, when they didn't have their legs underneath them, Kyle Lowry went for 10 points. The bench was absolutely the difference maker in the second half for that team. They're deeper, they're better, their style is more suited, but you're still playing a once-in-a-generation player, and I'm fascinated by this series.
Talking to Doris Burke, and of the 3 teams other than the Cavs left in the East, Doris, which team in your mind would have the best chance to beat Cleveland?
I am surprised I'm saying this, but the way Philadelphia is playing, the additions of Ersan Ilyasova and Marco Bellinelli to give them that punch and productivity off the bench, they're incredibly long. They defend, they play hard. And I'm going to go back to something J.J. Redick said to me when we had covered them early in November. He said, if we get to a place where we understand the value of every possession and don't turn it over, he said, we can be really good. I mean, I was talking to him after practice, and he was obviously assuming that health, sort of stayed in place for Joel Embiid. And I want you guys to consider something, and I'd be curious your take on this. When I watch Joel Embiid, I still think there's another level in terms of his conditioning. Like, this guy is an absolute monster right now, and I don't think he's in the best shape he could be in. And obviously it's because he's limited practice time, and they're trying to be careful with him, and they're looking in the long view. But guys, I don't think he's in the best condition he can be in, and he's still an absolute terror.
Well, you're right, and because he's still. Some of these guys take a few years to figure out what they need to eat and how they need to manage this stuff. Joel Embiid is just sort of going on right now, Doris, is the fact that, what's that line? Gosh darn it, I'm bigger and stronger. You know, I mean, that's just the way it is.
That's
I mean,
right.
He's just going with I'm bigger and stronger than you and I'm younger. When he figures that part out of it, you're right. He's going to be an absolute terror. Listen, before we let you go, we got to get to the Western Conference here real quickly. The way this thing is shaped up, Doris, with what we've seen out of Golden State, and it looks like Steph Curry may be coming back sometime this week. Right now, if you had to put the bet in, would it be in on Houston to get there? Would it be on Golden State?
It's on Golden State for me, Trey. It is. They're so hard to guard. And listen, the way they performed in game one, remember what Steve Kerr always tells us game after game after game. He said Steph, and even Kevin Durant has said this, the system is based around Steph Curry. The movement, the attention he draws, he completely shifts the defense. So they go out and dominate game one, and they're still getting a player back who really drives the entire system. So for me, it's Golden State, yeah.
All right, we'll see if it plays out that way. Doris, as always, great to talk to you, and congratulations on the fact that you got game, but we knew that already.
Thanks, Trey.
Thanks, Doris.
Talk to you.
It's Golic and Wingo.
Wait, both of you went to Notre Dame?
Well, we did.
I did not know that.
Well, you know.
Somehow that has slipped our discussion.
We like to peel back the curtain every once in a while and give you guys a little insight into our personality.
No, let people in.
SportsCenter brought to you by Dollar Shave Club. If you shower, brush your teeth, or try to make your hair look presentable, Dollar Shave Club has everything you need to look, feel, and smell your best. And they'll deliver it to you. Try the club today. Go to dollarshaveclub.com/Golic.
All right, we continue on Golic and Wingo, and by the way, you do want to brush your teeth if you're going to do the poop thing.
Without
that's going to be a lot of issues. So we're sorry if you're eating breakfast. We apologize. It wasn't our fault. Someone else made the bet. We're just reacting to the news of the day. Mm-hmm. So anyway, the draft was over the weekend, and there are certain people at certain times that like to hate on the SEC, right?
Yes.
And then the draft happens, and it makes it almost impossible. Would you like to share some of those stats?
Yeah, so we just finished the 83rd draft, and let's go to picks in the draft.
Yep.
The picks in the draft leading the way was Alabama out of the SEC. They had 12 draft picks. The next three teams that were tied with 7, North Carolina State out of the ACC.
All-time high for them, by the way.
Ohio State out of the Big Ten, and LSU out of the SEC. So the total from conferences for this draft, SEC led the way again with 53 picks. ACC was second with 45. Big Ten had 33. The Pac-12 had 30. And the Big 12 had 19. So that's looking at the Power 5 conferences. So that's how it breaks down. The SEC led once again. I have some historical facts on that. But this is just amazing to me on two fronts. When who was it? Sean Hamilton got selected by the Redskins.
Sean Deion Hamilton?
I'm sorry, Sean Deion Hamilton.
The linebacker out of Alabama.
Got selected by the Redskins. That meant all 11 of Alabama's starting defensive lineup from the 2016 season, all 11 opening season starters got selected in the last two drafts.
That's ridiculous.
I mean, that is unreal.
It's insane.
So on one part, as I tweeted about this, I said, listen, I know Alabama gets a lot of 5-star athletes.
Yeah.
But so that's to be great on the college level, and they still have to be developed.
Right.
We've seen 5-star athletes bust. We've seen 2-star athletes be all world.
Bradley Chubb was a 3-star recruit. He was rated the 733rd best prospect in his draft, in his high school recruiting class.
He may be the best player.
He's the 5th overall pick in the draft.
It's exactly right. On the other side, a 5-star, you're supposed to be good. I get it.
Right.
But you also had to be developed not only for college, but at the next level. These guys are all getting the whole starting opening day defense from 2016. So it's a feather in their cap. Also a feather in the cap of, beat them in the national championship that year? Clemson. Yep. So how about Deshaun Watson and that Clemson offense?
Yeah.
For what they did against that defense.
And oh, by the way, next year's draft, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but the 2019 draft might be all about the defensive linemen from Clemson. I mean, literally,
oh my God,
the top 5 might be Clemson and Ed Oliver. That's the way this draft could go in 2019.
You're right.
The Houston lineman, Ed Oliver, and then 4 Clemson D linemen.
So the SEC led again like they normally do.
Yeah.
Let's go history of the draft, shall we,
Sure.
Trey? And I'll ask you some of the questions.
Okay.
Who's had the most first-round draft picks? Team. Do you know?
I would probably say USC.
USC is number one with 81.
Wow.
Ohio State next with 79.
That would have been my next guess.
And then Notre Dame, I think, was 66. Number one overall draft picks.
The school with the most number one overall picks.
Overall draft picks.
That's difficult. I'll go.
I mean, it's basically right where we were.
USC.
USC and Notre Dame have 5.
Yeah.
And now Oklahoma
has 4.
With Baker Mayfield has 4.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
How about this one, by the way, just from this draft? There were 26 SEC players taken through the first 3 rounds. That's the third most all-time by any conference. The other 2, the SEC had 30 in 2017 and 32 in 2013.
Yeah.
So we're seeing a pattern. You can pretend that we're not getting the best players out of the SEC, but you'd be just pretending.
We'll continue that. First-round draft picks over the entire career of the 83 drafts. First-round draft picks. The SEC has 407.
Mm-hmm.
Next is the Big Ten at 377.
Okay, that's a significant difference.
Yeah, it is. And number one overall draft picks, the SEC has 19. The Pac-12 has 17. The Big Ten has 13.
Yeah. Look, it's playing out the way you expect it to play out.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say historically it hasn't always been that way, and that's fine. But for the last 10 years, this is the way it's been. The best players most of the best players go to SEC schools, and they get drafted accordingly. That's not to say we haven't had great players like Deshaun Watson and some of those Clemson defensive players that have come out of the ACC, and we've seen a bunch of great wide receivers come out of Clemson, and we saw a bunch of Ohio State players drafted in this draft, and we'll see a ton of them as well. But right now, as the predominant conference, SEC continues to dominate college football.
Yeah, and I talked about the number one overall picks. It's USC and Notre Dame tied at 5 overall. Notre Dame's last one, though, have to go all the way back to 1972. D lineman Walt Patulski.
Walt Patulski for the Bills.
For USC,
yeah.
They've had a couple recent. Keyshawn in 96, and then the latest Carson Palmer in 2003.
And it's interesting. I know we got just 10 seconds left here, but Carson Palmer might be the model for a lot of these first-round quarterbacks that may not play for a long time.
Right.
They want to sit these guys and let them learn. Speaking of the draft, we've got Todd McShay and Mel Kiper Jr. coming up next.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I feel like a whole new person.
Disclaimer, you will not become a whole new person. This is impossible. You might be able to join a gym or diet program, buy a new wardrobe, get hair implants, but your DNA and physical form will remain the same. Geico waives any and all liability if you attempt to become a new person, except a cyborg. If you choose to become a half-human, half-cybernetic organism with lasers for eyes, the Geico legal team would be cool with that, because, quote, laser eyes are pretty sweet. Pew, 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 end quote.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15%.
Whether it's a youth, amateur, or professional sporting event, moms are the biggest fans in attendance. From orange peels at halftime to batter's box cheers, a mom's dedication is unmatched. This Mother's Day, show her how much you've appreciated all the support she's given you with 1-800-Flowers.com. Right now, when you get ahead of the Mother's Day rush, 1-800-Flowers will give you an exclusive 30 for 30 offer. 30 assorted tulips for just $30. With a bright and beautiful mix of orange, yellow, and pink blooms, these assorted tulips are guaranteed to make her smile. Assorted tulips are the perfect way to surprise all of the moms in your life. Wife, aunt, sister, grandma. Tulips from 1-800-Flowers are picked at their peak from premier farms and shipped overnight to ensure freshness. 30 assorted tulips for only $30. It's an amazing offer, but you have to hurry because it expires Tuesday. Just pick your delivery date and 1-800-Flowers will handle the rest. Don't put this off, guys. Order today from 1-800-Flowers.com. It's what Mom would want you to do. To order 30 stunning assorted tulips for only $30, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/Wingo. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/Wingo. Order today and save at 1-800-Flowers.com/Wingo. Offer expires Tuesday.
Squirrels are known for saving, but with the help of AARP, they won't be the only ones. From planning to budgeting, AARP is here to help you stretch your dollar further. So take on today and every day with AARP. Learn how at takeontoday.aarp.
We are delighted to have in studio for the foreseeable future Mel Kiper Jr. and Todd McShay. Guys, I feel like I never left you. How are we?
We're good, surviving.
You guys just changing studios, whether in the stadium, outside, or now in the studio here. When is it, like, done? As far as the draft, when will you guys be like
Tomorrow,
off the clock?
I think, right? Tomorrow.
4:30 p.m.
4:30 today.
After your 2019 mock draft?
84 to 90 East.
Tomorrow?
Well, for me,
Today?
the end of May wraps it up. And then you get a break.
Okay.
Yeah, the end of May is finished, and of course, Todd has a mock coming out. I had the big board coming out in 2 weeks with all the positional stuff. So middle of May, really, for that stuff.
I'll start tape next week on 2019, and then go through June, and then take July off.
Right.
So overall, Mel, I'll start with you. Just overall, this draft as compared to some other draft, how this one went and the talent overall.
The talent was good. I think it was exciting at the top. And Trey, we talked about the curveball that was thrown by Cleveland and John Dorsey, because at 1 and 4 he went different than I think conventional wisdom would have said. And I think we were all expecting Darnold or Allen to go 1.
Right.
Yeah, Todd was Darnold, I was Allen. Yeah. We're 0 for 2. It ended up being Baker, who kind of was the guy that you heard in there, but did you really believe it? Probably not. But Dorsey was intrigued by Manziel back in the day, and he went and said, okay, I don't care about anything else. Now, I don't know what happened with Josh Allen with the tweets. I don't know.
Doesn't sound like it.
Right. Yeah, well, they're not going to say anything.
Right.
They're never going to tell you that affected their decision, but you never know. It was supposedly come down. Mary Kay Cabot reported it come down to those two, and Darnold was being pushed down, and we don't know. But at the end of the day, Denzel Ward over Bradley Chubb was also a surprise. So if we would have sat there on draft day and tried to predict what was going to happen on both picks, we'd have been wrong. So, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to be wrong. Right. So, Ward's a good player. I don't think anybody would have knocked Ward if he'd been picked by anybody in the top 10. And nobody would have knocked Mayfield had he been picked by Miami.
No.
Would have said good pick.
No, even the Jets.
Yeah.
So, if it went Darnold and then Mayfield, I would have understood that too.
Exactly.
So overall, how would this draft to you?
I tell you what, we're in for a shock next year unless some things change, because this was a record-setting draft. When you talk about 4 quarterbacks in the top 10.
Never happened before.
The amount of viewership. I mean, day 3, even with Shaq Griffin and the stories that we had in this draft, and the most viewed ever on day 3 in this year's draft class. So some years are just better than others, and it oftentimes has to do with the quarterbacks. And this year was a special group because there was so much hype with the 3, and then Baker goes out and has a record-setting season and keeps moving up the board. I mean, we had him as a 2nd, 3rd round prospect coming into the year, and a lot of NFL teams did. Don't let anyone lie to you. I mean, I have several friends who are scouts who were sitting there going, back up day 2 in that range, and then he starts playing this year and hanging in the pocket and doing more NFL things and starts going up and up and up the board. So anytime you have 5 quarterbacks that are big name quarterbacks and are drafted in the 1st round, it's tough to beat that.
Mel Kiper and Todd with us in studio, giving us a Straight Talk budget by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Let's stick there for a second, because you're right. We talked about this before the season began, that everyone thought Baker Mayfield, maybe a 3rd round. Late 2nd round, maybe 3rd round. Day 2 guy for sure. And then one season changes everything. Now, He had been at Oklahoma for a long time. Why do you think this one season in a draft in which we were quarterback rich changed the narrative about Baker so much?
I'll say this. All 3 of the big 3 were destined to have disappointing years. And we talked about that in August.
Right.
That, with Josh Allen had lost, with Sam Darnold had lost, with Josh Rosen coming off the shoulder. So I think the hype of those 3 and the disappointment of how they played, considering the hype, was the reason why Baker, who was out there lighting it up, was able to garner a lot of attention and gain momentum, build on that to the point where he becomes the number 1 pick, which was also a surprise even after all that push-up. They got to the top spot. But I think it was because of we were able to kind of poke holes and come up with red flags for the 3 players that were ranked way ahead of him.
Well, don't forget, too, Baker lost 2 running backs to the NFL. He lost basically all of his wide receivers and came back and had better numbers. And I thought, if you go back and really study it, from the after the Iowa State game, from that point on, I think it was Texas was the following week, but after the Iowa State loss, it's almost like they made a decision. We're going to stay in the pocket. And he started showing more and more patience, even against Ohio State. He had a really good game, but he was moving around and wasn't trusting his protection. And it was like back lot football where it felt more like Johnny Manziel. And then as the season progressed, more and more, he started hanging in the pocket, and it looked more like Russell Wilson. And to me, I think NFL teams started looking at it and saying, all right, this looks a lot more like our game. And I think every single game you saw from that point on, he started to rise.
And I think that, along with Mel, what you said, and I agree, the three guys, there's no way they were living up to the hype from before the season, and they absolutely didn't live up to that hype. They all had their issues. Before we move into some of the later picks, who was the guy in the first round that dropped the most where you said, boy, oh boy, somebody got to steal
Derwin James.
Derwin James got to be, right?
17. I mean, a guy that we thought could go as high as 7.
Which is interesting because that would have been where the Bucs would have picked before they made the trade with Buffalo at 7.
Exactly.
Then they moved back to 12. We were all surprised he got by.
And they still don't take him at 12.
That was the thing that surprised a lot of us, that they didn't take him at 12.
It's a good one.
26. Yeah, Calvin Ridley at 26. The Atlanta, when we thought maybe top 10 back when we were doing the mocks early on, maybe Chicago, we thought at 8 could take Calvin Ridley. He drops all the way to the late first round and goes to where Julio Jones is, the old Alabama Crimson Tide receiver.
And the second receiver
spectacular.
taken.
That was late for receivers, too, right?
Yeah.
24 being the first one, DJ Moore?
Not an overreaction, because the 3 receivers went
Last
top
year?
10, did nothing. And we brought up all the stats about how young receivers struggle, and all the receivers this year got pushed down.
Well, to that point, the last 2 seasons, second-round receivers did much better over the last 2 years than first-round receivers did over the last couple of seasons. Before we get on to anything else, I want to pin you guys down on this because we had 5 quarterbacks go in the first round, only the third time ever that's happened, 99 and 83 when we had 6. If you had to put all your chips in the table on one of these quarterbacks being the quarterback out of this draft, because historically says 50-50 hit or miss here on quarterbacks, which one are you all in on still?
Josh Allen.
Josh Allen?
You know I'm not.
All right.
I'm going down with Josh. I'm going to sink or swim with Josh Allen. You're going with Darnold, I know.
Yeah, I mean, I knew Baker Mayfield was the first overall pick, and I kept Sam Darnold one because I'm so stubborn.
Smart.
Yeah.
Hey, this guy. Talk about stubborn.
Yeah.
Shefty, Mort's going to be Mayfield. It's going to be Mayfield.
Yeah.
We knew by 9 a.m. Sports Center.
I'm sticking with Darnold.
Yeah.
Listen,
so you're Allen and you're Darnold.
You're Darnold, and I'm Rosen. I mean, for the health.
And I'll be Lamar.
Well, and listen, all
John
that,
Dorsey's Mayfield.
And all that said, the Browns did absolutely the right thing if they think Baker Mayfield was their highest rated guy. Without question, we just all disagree with that pick, with all the quarterbacks that are out there. But all that matters is what they think and what they rate.
By the way, Russell Wilson would have gone number 1 in that draft.
Yeah.
What would we have been saying there?
Oh, you can't take a guy that's short.
Kidding me?
Under 6 foot. I mean,
so John Schneider would have won that battle, right?
Bill Polian's head would have exploded.
John Schneider.
And Baker,
John's going here. We got John Schneider and John Dorsey throwing curveballs.
Baker's going to a good situation. This is not the old Cleveland.
You are 100%
You've got a
correct.
quarterback coach that can coach quarterbacks in Ken Zampese. Todd Haley at the coordinator spot. You've got weapons. I mean, they brought in Nick Chubb, Carlos Hyde at running back, Duke Johnson,
Landry,
who can catch the ball out of the backfield, Landry,
Josh Gordon.
To go with Josh Gordon at wide receiver. Their offensive line's okay. Their defense should be solid.
They're going to be 8-8.
They could be 8-8 this year.
Let me ask you guys, all of you, you can all answer this. We all will. On the same thing about now the quarterbacks, you draft for a decade. You don't draft for their rookie year. But that being said, I'm going to go to the rookie year. Which of the 5 quarterbacks in the first round sees the field first?
Whoa. I would say, based on where we are right now with knowing the history of Sam Bradford, maybe Rosen. But you think about McCown and Bridgewater. It's tempting to think Darnold, but he's so young, and they got to fix him.
I also think maybe Buffalo, and not like A.J. McCarron has been the starter for years.
Yeah, I think just Josh.
But I don't think Josh is ready.
And I think Mayfield,
though,
Tyrod Taylor was brought. Now, this could be where Russell Wilson beat out Matt Flynn. Who knows?
Right.
I got a stat for you. You ready?
Hit me.
It's actually a trivia question. I think I gave one of you guys this, so don't cheat. Okay. There's one quarterback this decade who was drafted in the first round who did not start a game in his rookie year. Who is it?
You told me this on the ride back, and I still can't remember. That's the worst part about it.
I'll give you a second to think, but that's the point. Only one out of all these first-round quarterbacks has not started a game in his rookie year. So expect to see
in the last decade.
So
right?
forget seeing them.
Decade.
Yeah, forget Carson Palmer.
Forget seeing them, but starting. You're saying starting a game.
Starting a game. Yep. E.J. Manuel is the only one.
Yeah.
Wow.
So basically, if you draft a guy, remember that was the thing with Blake Bortles. We're going to sit him for a year. That lasted 3 games.
Right.
Okay.
This is the first year where we've had legitimate players in a spot to be the starter ahead of the rookie.
I think Lamar will
see,
play, but I don't think he's going to start any games this year.
I agree with that.
Would be my guess.
He'll be a pack. But it's also be the first year where this would be something where you would say based on the veterans are in place or the quarterbacks are in place. If the rookies are playing this year, I think we'll never say it again. We'll never say rookies aren't maybe here, won't play. We thought Glennon was going to be the guy with Trubisky got in there. So I think this will be the final shot for these guys to hold on to their positions.
I thought they've already given up. I think this year more than any other year, it would be more on injury this time with the veterans that are in front of them. Okay, now the guy who was rated maybe a first rounder who didn't go in the first round, that was the best value pick. I'm going to give mine first. Maurice Hurst. Fifth rounder, had the heart situation. Luckily, everything's fine there. Now, I don't know if you guys can't remember if you had him as a first rounder, second rounder type of guy anyway. But to go in the fifth.
Maurice Hurst, the defensive tackle out of Michigan.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Josh Jackson.
Cornerback out of Iowa.
I'll give you another Iowa guy, James Daniels.
James Daniels.
The center out of Iowa. From Iowa who went pick 39 to the Chicago Bears.
Baltimore could have taken him and because they need a center and they went for Lamar Jackson instead.
I was surprised at the two centers that went in the first round and none of them Daniels. I think Daniels may kick the guard in Chicago. But I was surprised it was a Ragnow and
Ragnow was a high riser.
Price, and Price who tore his pec at the combine.
Well, that was he got the medical recheck that he should be good to go by the time training camp starts. Todd McShay, Mel Kiper Jr., our draft experts in with us. We talk a lot about the first round, but as we've seen over the years, it is late round guys that come out. And you mentioned Maurice Hurst. We had a lot of quarterbacks taken in the first round. Was there a quarterback not drafted in the first round that you guys are like, keep your eye on this guy?
I like Luke Falk in the 6th round to Tennessee. I was a little surprised.
Because we didn't have a quarterback taken in the second round, which was very unusual.
New England didn't take him. They only took Danny Etling, but I'll go with Luke Falk from Washington State. And you just set up perfectly for your guy.
Kyle Lauletta from Richmond.
Yes.
Fifth round, fourth round of the New York Giants.
Where'd you go to school?
University of Richmond.
Yeah, okay. Who's this kid you're talking about? Where did you go to school?
Kyle Lauletta went to University of Richmond. Spiders.
Hold on there, Notre Dame boy.
Come on. Have I brought that up yet?
I get to do this once. This is the first time since 1975.
Every segment.
Have I brought that up yet? By the way, Quenton Nelson will join us at 9:30, the guard from Notre Dame.
Followed by Mike McGlinchey.
Keep going, Mike.
He's in a good situation. Eli's there. Davis Webb could eventually become the starter, or they could bring somebody else in, and I think Lauletta will wind up being a really good backup for the Giants.
Okay, so with all that being said, somebody made a mistake early in this draft. It happens every year. We don't know it now, but it turns out, we shouldn't have done that. Was there one pick in the first round to begin with, as Mel and Todd are with us in studio, that had you guys thinking, I wouldn't have taken him there?
Terrell Edmonds for me. Yeah. And go back, listen, Kevin Colbert.
Terrell Edmonds, the safety out of Virginia Tech.
The first time doing radio.
That's okay.
Right.
No, it's my job. I just want to make sure everybody knows.
28th picked
28 overall.
Steelers.
Kevin Colbert is built Super Bowl winners, so I'm not knocking them. I'm interested to see how they use him. If it's more in a linebacker role, then I think that would kind of fit. But Edmonds, I had rated 81. He goes 28, and my board is my bar. I've got to go off of that, and that was the biggest stretch in terms of where I had a player rated to where he went in the first round.
And I'll flip it on the other side. A guy that dropped to the 3rd round was Justin Reed, the safety out of Stanford.
Yeah.
And you said Edmonds was a shock to go in the first. It's a safety. We thought Justin Reed could have gone there.
Could.
He dropped had him way ahead of Edmonds.
I wonder if his brother has something to do with it.
I don't know. But that's one where you'll be watching in a couple of years to see where Edmonds is and see where Reed is, because Reed had a higher grade on our boards than Edmonds did. Edmonds goes 1st round, Reed goes 3rd round. And I'll tell you, we were talking about New England and what the Patriots did. Braxton Berrios is a smart, tough kid.
Mm-hmm. Wide receiver out of Miami, went to the Patriots.
New England. He's Danny Amendola.
He's 5'8", had a 3.91 GPA.
Yeah, that's who he is. He's Danny Amendola, Wes Welker. He's a great punt returner. He's a smart kid, tough kid. And for New England, they get a 2 next year, a 3 next year. Belichick's working it properly. They had one of the best drafts, and they're already set up for next year. And Berrios will be one of the more immediate standouts because he's going to fill a role right away.
Completely agree.
And they know how to use. Yep. Brady loves the Welker, Amendola role of those players and what they can do. And now Berrios, who should be able to play as a rookie, will help.
He's as tough as nails as well, just like those guys. A reach for me in the first round was Colton Miller.
Yeah,
going to the Raiders at 15. I just don't see.
They wanted McGlinchey. And San Fran took him at 9. You go back to that coin flip. Remember the coin flip?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, at the combine, right?
They were sitting there. They were going to take him 10. So it's amazing how one flip of the coin.
You never know. Hey, I remember with Perry Tuttle, Mike Quick thing. You never know. You might one it goes and you're settle, and the guy that you settle for turns out to be a lot better.
For those that don't know, those are 2 wide receivers that went in the 70s, right?
Yeah.
Perry Tuttle and Mike Quick. Mike Quick is the name we remember, the wide receiver for the Eagles out of North Carolina State.
Yes.
Mel has been majoring in dated references this week.
Did you like my one yesterday? I said the Cleveland Browns threw a Burt Blyleven curveball.
There you go.
He He acted like Burt Blythe was from 1940.
Well, I mean, couldn't you?
Before they raised the mound.
The 18 to 25 demo probably doesn't.
I'm in trouble with
that
that demo.
Yeah, it's not your demo.
Mel and Todd with us in studio. Were any one of you curious, as I was, about Rashad Penny going the running back out of San Diego State in the first round?
No, because he ran in the 4.45 range at 220 pounds. He's got great production, great versatility.
Where'd you have him rated, Mel?
As an early to mid-second.
Okay.
But
what, your fourth or fifth running back?
Yeah, but it's not that much separating.
It was the second, right?
It wasn't much separating.
I just want to make sure you're keeping honest here.
Darius Geis and Rashad Penny was hardly any difference. Hardly. After Saquon Barkley tie, let's get real. There was no difference.
And
really.
Geis fell because of the character.
Right, so there was that second running back spot could have been Geis, it could have been Michelle, could have been Chubb, could have been Penny, could have been anybody. So this notion that Rashad Penny can't play and he should have been a fifth-round pick.
No one's saying he can't play, but I think we were all surprised that he went in the first round, especially when someone like Sony Michel, the running back out of Georgia, was still sitting there. And lo and behold, after they take Penny, what do the Patriots do? They go and get Sony Michel right away.
Some of Seattle's best picks over the years have been the ones where we're sitting there on draft day going,
the head scratchers.
Yeah, well, we probably could have gotten him around later. But if you go back and look at the history, it's kind of early on when they were great at drafting. They had picks like this, and we all mocked them, and then they turned out to be really good players.
Guys, these mocks will drive you nuts because you get into the mocks.
Stop doing them.
Say a guy was mocked here, but he put him in. How could they take a guy who was never mocked in the first?
Yeah.
How dare they? He wasn't mocked there.
Yeah.
Well, who cares?
They're mocking the mock is basically what they're doing.
Is there a team that had multiple head scratchers to you? So a team that graded a little less in this draft that you just weren't sure of some of the moves they were making?
Well, you could look at the Raiders maybe as a risk reward. Look,
they took some big hacks,
right? If Colton Miller works out,
swings,
great.
Yeah.
If Maurice Hurst-Hart is fine, that's a steal.
P.J. Hall,
Arden Key, who has all kinds of issues and very inconsistent. That to me seems like the home run or strikeout draft.
Totally
right.
Completely agree. And P.J. Hall, we all thought third.
P.J. Hall, the defensive
tackle, Sam Houston State, not invited to the combine. Only player I think in the first 2 rounds drafted that was not invited to the combine. Doesn't mean he's not going to be a good player. He led the FCS in block kicks. He's 3 off the all-time record in the FCS for block kicks as a defensive tackle, and he's got quickness. He's unbelievably productive. The measurables aren't there, but they love what they saw.
If you're looking for a surprise, like Miami and New England not getting a quarterback earlier.
Right.
Miami didn't, and New England did late. So
I think for New England I think that's a little bit telling that relationship between Bill and Tom has to be repaired a little bit. I think from everything you hear and all the reports, and this is I think, hey, you're our guy, we get it. Mm-hmm. We're going to go with you, and we're going to put everything around you that we possibly can, and that's what they did in this draft.
One last thing I'll say, which I think is kind of interesting when you look at something that may or may not work out in terms of these draft picks going forward. Was there one other guy that you were like, okay, I'm not so sure about this, but it may work out? Is there one of those?
Yeah, the guy that's interesting is Marcus Davenport.
That's the guy I'm glad you said that. Because New Orleans gave up a first-round pick to get him. So he's the defensive end out of UTSA. He was the second best pass rusher we thought in this draft. But basically, they gave up a first-round pick for him, which means he's got to be a hit.
I got a call in January. Somebody in the NFL that said, "You're finally on Davenport.
Yeah,
you better be, because he could be the top 5 pick."
Yeah.
He goes to the Senior Bowl and he doesn't wow everybody over, and all of a sudden he's dropped a little bit. They gave up. This is going to be interesting. Green Bay needed a pass rusher.
Right.
Green Bay allowed New Orleans to jump into their spot and take Marcus Davenport, and they gave up a first next year. Davenport is a guy in a draft with no pass rushers. He was the second best guy behind Bradley Chubb. Marcus Davenport has an elite skill set. He wants to be great. He's got the right frame of mind. People say, well, he's jumping from that level to this level. All I can say is he can get after the quarterback, and he is tremendously long and athletic. He can close like a cat. Marcus Davenport is the one that you're talking mid-first round that could have been, back in January, people were talking top 5. So there you go. Davenport, watch him. He could be Defensive Player of the Year.
Interested to see Leighton Vander Esch for Dallas.
Right, for Dallas, yeah.
There's some durability. Some teams dropped him because of the neck injury, but he comes out of Boise State. He's got unbelievable measurables. I liked his tape. I didn't love parts of his tape. I thought a little bit late shooting his guns, if you will. Diagnosed quickly and gets there, but making tackles 2-3 yards down, 2-3 yards into the run versus at the line of scrimmage where Roquan Smith would have made them. And is a little bit tight in terms of change of direction skills, but they love him, and their defense drops off when they have injuries at the linebacker position. The Dallas Cowboys needed a guy like this. I understand the pick, but I'm interested to see if he plays the level that what a 19th overall pick should play.
When Rashaan Evans was still on the board.
That's true too.
So real quickly,
linebacker out
with
of Alabama,
the mock draft and the next big board coming up, how many defensive linemen will be in the top 5? Nick Bosa, Ed Oliver, and how many D linemen from Clemson? I mean,
at least 2 in the first round.
Right? I got 7 in the top 10 players, defensive linemen.
Yeah.
The only offensive players are quarterback Drew Lock, Missouri, wide receiver A.J. Brown, Ole Miss, and offensive tackle Greg Little from Ole Miss.
You know how sick this guy is?
Yeah.
This started on last Monday.
You're talking about Mel, not Mike and I, right?
Right.
Yeah.
The only one in here can be called that.
Yeah. I don't. Right.
It fits us all.
On Monday, this guy starts on. Who are your top 5 running backs? Who are your running backs? When are you doing your mock draft? When's your mock draft? Todd, when's the mock draft coming up? Monday? Is the mock on Tuesday? Mock on what?
I'm anxious to say it.
He hasn't stopped. Every single. I mean, we have a draft coming up.
Yeah.
I'm talking about last week.
Before this draft.
On to 2019, before we even had the first pick.
So he's going, 2019 draft.
We closed that book already.
Well, listen, his
work was done.
He's from Maryland. Pumpkin pie and football.
That's
what Maryland does. Yeah.
Exactly.
Pumpkin pie and football. Mel, Todd, you're the best.
Thanks, guys.
Now get the hell out of here.
I'm a one-trick pony, literally. I show up at kids' parties and act cute. That's pretty much it. So excuse me for being bitter. When Geico says not only could we save you money on car insurance, but we do more. Like give you 24/7 access online, over the phone, or even via our award-winning mobile app. Well, ooh la la. Aren't they multi-talented? Hey, I said organic carrots.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
Headbanging. Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests on the show, Penzo Performance Line. That's the perfect music to be playing for our next guest who will be joining us in just a few minutes. That would be guard Quenton Nelson, who went 6th overall to the Indianapolis Colts. Quite frankly, it might be a perfect fit for not only best player available, but also team need for what Indianapolis has to do.
Yeah, you know how I talked about in my career when I say, I was slow and I made up for it by being weak?
Yeah.
The Indianapolis Colts last year.
By the way, I just sort of glossed over that.
Yeah.
That was really well done on your part.
I was slow, but I made up for it by being weak.
Yes.
The Colts couldn't run the ball, and they made up for it by giving up a league-high 56 sacks.
Yeah.
So it's kind of along that they couldn't do anything on offense. And they need to get stout up front. And they've tried that, a few times. Ryan Kelly's had some injury issues, and he should be back at center. But listen, this is a guy in Quenton Nelson, the top lineman in the draft. And I'll be interested to hear from him because when we talk about him, we also talk about his coach, Harry Hiestand, of just the importance of the coach and how the coach helps in development. Hiestand now with the Chicago Bears. And I wonder, the Bears got Roquan Smith, a fantastic linebacker. It would have been interesting if Quenton was available at that spot, which route they would have gone. But they got a fine linebacker in Smith. But Quenton Nelson is brought in. We keep talking about the quarterback, a wide receiver, a pass rusher as those impact players. That can be the interior line.
Yeah.
Because you have to be stout up front. You can't let penetration come straight up the middle on a quarterback. That's a quarterback's worst enemy. So that is where they need to be stout, and they're going to count on a guy like Quenton to do that.
Well, I think over the last few years, the Colts have been the worst at allowing not only sacks and hits, but quarterback pressures, all that kind of stuff. There's a reason why Andrew Luck has had the shoulder injury and the lacerated kidney and all this kind of stuff, although that one he sort of did on his own by running around and didn't know when to get down.
Right.
By the way, I'm glad you mentioned the Bears because we've talked a lot about what teams have done. I don't think we've talked enough about what Chicago has done. Roquan Smith was a no-brainer. And then they get a guy who has first-round talent in the second round in center, James Daniels out of Iowa.
Without question.
And then the kid Anthony Miller out of Memphis.
Speedster kid, right?
For people that don't know his story, he is a little undersized, but all he did was catch everything that threw his way. He's from Memphis, went to CBC, Christian Brothers College High School, there in Memphis, and he got some FCS scholarship offers, but always thought he was an FBS quality player. So what he did... He went on as a preferred walk-on with Memphis. And when you have your signing day ceremony in high school, they said just go to the signing day and sign a blank piece of paper, and that'll be your offer that you're signing for us. So he went and signed a blank piece of paper. and he still has that piece of paper with him to this day.
Isn't that something?
And so he got there as a preferred walk-on, got a chance, and absolutely showed out for the Memphis Tigers, putting up all kinds of numbers.
He did, and it's a team that's looking for some speed at wide receiver. They thought that was going to be Kevin White a couple of years ago. He's been, unfortunately,
all kinds of
an unbelievably great athlete, but the type of ability you need the most, he doesn't have right now, and that's availability. He's just not there. So they continue to search for that wide receiver. So we'll see what gets put on Miller. Since we're waiting on Quenton Nelson to give us a ring, we look at do a little O-line talk. Again, McGlinchey goes number 9 from Notre Dame to San Francisco. He'll kick over to right tackle. He played right tackle at Notre Dame and left tackle. Then you have Colton Miller, who went to the Oakland Raiders, number 15. That's an iffy pick to me from a technique standpoint. We'll see. Then back-to-back centers in Ragnow from Arkansas going to Detroit, and the Bengals taking Billy Price, again, a guy who tore his pec at the combine doing the bench press test. So he's medically cleared, though.
And see, that's going to be the interesting thing going forward, because we had a running back that hurt his hamstring running the 40. You just wonder when more and more players are going to say, I feel pretty good about where I am in my draft status. I'm not going to go through the stuff that's going to hurt me.
I agree with that. I absolutely agree of when that may happen. More on the last O-lineman taken in the first round, a guy that I think could be the second best, Isaiah Wynn. And not shockingly, he goes to the Patriots, who love versatility. Isaiah Wynn can play all the positions. He's a shorter guy who was playing left tackle for them. I mean, amazing. But this guy is an incredible athlete on the offensive line.
Tore the labrum in his shoulder against Kentucky November 18th and decided, I'll play without the surgery.
Yeah.
Just went through everything and made it all the way to the national championship game. Then there's the guys that we see drafted that are always going to be that sleeper gem for fantasy, right? That's the thing. Which guy's going to give me those fantasy points that I need? One that I go to right away, and it was one of the last picks in the draft, but I think because of where he went and how he's going to be used, it's pretty simple to me that the New England Patriots with Braxton Berrios, the wide receiver who went in the 6th round out of Miami. Look, he's 5'8", undersized, really intelligent guy, 3.91 on his GPA in business administration at the University of Miami. They have Danny Amendola, who goes to the Dolphins, so he leaves. They're going to use those kind of receivers in New England. You have Edelman coming back from the ACL, but the Patriots were at their best when they had Edelman and Amendola. Yeah. This guy's going to slide right in to that Amendola route, and is a guy that you're going to be able to count on, especially in a PPR league, to maybe get a bunch of points and help you win your fantasy league.
Name me a slot receiver for the Patriots who hasn't been undersized.
Correct, exactly.
I mean, and they have no fear. They don't care he's going to be a rookie. They will, as long as that guy learns the playbook, and that's why I said learn the playbook, know your responsibilities. They will throw you the ball. They will absolutely throw you the ball. And I agree with you. He'll be a nice fantasy pick. Again, I don't know all the different fantasy leagues, but he's certainly going to catch his share of balls. He's not going to have a 13 yards per catch average.
No chance.
But he's going to catch a lot of balls. He's going to be that guy that made me as a defender angry.
Right.
When it's 3rd and 4 and he gains 4.5 yards and it's first down and I got another set of downs, you're like, damn.
Yeah.
That's the kind of guy he can be.
I'll throw in another one out there. DJ Moore, the wide receiver out of Maryland, who was the
first wide receiver picked in this draft.
Off the board, yeah absolutely, at 24. Look, he's going to be the home run threat that when Cam has to just hurl it up there, that's the guy they're going to go to and see if he can make the play. And then, of course, Calvin Ridley lining up alongside Julio Jones in Atlanta is going to be very interesting. So those are some fantasy players early on that you might want to keep in mind when you're doing your fantasy draft. By the way, don't ever draft your fantasy league until after the 3rd preseason game,
right?
Because you never know what's going to happen. There could be injuries.
Right.
We're still efforting, but it's such a TV and radio term, efforting the top 10 pick that should be a plug-and-play starter for the next decade.
That's Notre Dame guy.
He better honor the show.
You're not kidding.
Better honor the show.
Exactly right.
He can.
Turn your mic on. You are a professional.
He can, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing that Tom Coughlin isn't doing this radio show. Because if Tom Coughlin was doing this radio show, he'd be fine for being late. But either way, we're happy to have him.
Yes, we are,
and we're delighted to be joined now in Golic and Wingo by the new 1st-round pick of the Indianapolis Colts at his guard, Quenton Nelson. Quenton, first of all, congratulations,
man.
When you finally heard your name called, what was the first thing that went through your mind?
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. When I got the call, I was just so happy and excited. Looked down at my phone and saw the Indianapolis area code. and I was at my lake house in Indiana with a bunch of my teammates, family, and friends, and everyone was going crazy. Just when I said thank you so much, everyone started screaming in excitement and joy. So we had a great time.
It is a very cool thing, especially you're going to be a high pick, right. But when it actually happens, that moment. So in that moment, Quenton, when you were told it, got the call and you knew it, who was the first person you thought of?
I don't think I really thought of like one person. I mean, I was with everyone that helped me get to where I am today, and there's a lot of people to think of. But I mean, to get picked by the Colts and be so close to Indiana still, it was a big time moment for me.
Yeah, you played your college ball at South Bend, and you stay there. You go try to protect Andrew Luck, which has been a problem for the Colts the last few years. But Quenton, one of the things that I love about the draft process is I get to read up on so many of these players and some of the stories that are behind them. And one of the things that I found fascinating about your story is just how uber competitive your entire family is. And there was a story in there about the 3-on-3 basketball that you guys always play with your family. In your driveway, and the teams are always the same. It's your mom and your dad, your two sisters, your brother, and you play 3-on-3. And one of the things that was in there was a game in which you guys were going at it, and your mom actually took a charge and broke her wrist. And on the way to the hospital, you guys were arguing whether or not she was moving her feet. It was a block or a charge. Is that true? Did that actually happen?
Yeah, that actually did happen. She broke her wrist in 3 places, and we are really super competitive. It was definitely a charge to
I was waiting for that.
That's awesome.
Waiting for that.
That's awesome.
Quenton Nelson joining us, number 6 pick overall by the Colts. Again, Colts just about dead last in rush yards per rush, and last giving up 56 sacks. So really counting on Quenton Nelson. And Q, talking about a coach. And take us inside a little bit on the development. Harry Hiestand, who was a coach there, who has coached a number of first-rounders and guys in the NFL. He went on to the Chicago Bears. Talk about that relationship and just how much Harry helped you in your development through your years.
Yeah, he definitely helped me a lot. I wouldn't be where I am today without him. He developed me into the player I am today, 100%. He just cares about you so much as a man, as a student when I was in college, and of course as a football player. And he really made me into the man I am today too, because if I was ever slipping up in anything, he'd always tell me to do better. And his attention to detail when we're watching film or we're out on the practice field is second to none. He always has a coaching point that is actually a really good coaching point. It's not like he's just saying things that don't really make sense. And he's so good at bringing the togetherness of the group together, and he gives 100% every single day, and is a great motivator for everyone on the offensive line, and just one of the best coaches I've ever been around.
Well, obviously he did something right. Harry Hiestand did. He's now with the Bears, but the Notre Dame head coach, as we're offensive line coach, as we're joined by Quenton Nelson, because you went 6th and Mike McGlinchey, your Notre Dame teammate, went 9th. First time we've ever had 2 offensive linemen from Notre Dame go in the top 10. Was there in any way, a shape or form, as the uber competitive guy that you are, a little rivalry or a bet with you and McGlinchey as to who would go first?
No, there wasn't a bet or anything. It's not really like that at all. We both support each other so much, and we were both so happy for each other when each of us got drafted, both in the top 10 and the first 2 offensive linemen off the board, and we were ecstatic for each other.
Is there a old lineman that you saw play back in the day a little bit that you kind of model your game after?
Yeah, there's a O-lineman named Zach Martin, about a year before I got there. And I would watch film on him. and then go out on the practice field and try to emulate what he was doing on the film that I had just watched, because he was like one of the best to ever do it, and just so easy, and his technique is amazing. So I just try to copy that as best as I can.
That would be a good person to copy,
Sure
because
would.
he's about to get the Brinks truck backed up to him. You worry about your first contract, but then if you want to get the next one, do exactly what Zach did, and you'll be just fine.
Yeah, without a doubt. What did we got about a minute left? What did Frank Reich tell you? What did your head coach tell you on what his expectations for you?
He just said that he's really excited, and I'm going to love what we're going to do there. We're going to go fast. We're going to slow it down a little bit, and we're going to run the football. And to give, because that's how we protect Andrew the most, is by running the football, establishing that run game. And I'm just really excited to get to work with the rest of the offensive line.
Real quickly before we run out of time, have you spoken with Andrew Luck yet?
Yes, I have.
And how'd that go?
It went great. He's a great guy, and just by hearing his confidence and his demeanor on the phone was special, and I'm excited to play with him.
Well, I'm sure his first words were "thank you."
Yeah,
and when he heard that,
my goodness for all that O-line if they
Exactly.
protect him.
All right, Quenton, congratulations. Thanks for being with us, and best of luck doing what you can to help the Indianapolis Colts get back into the postseason.
Thanks, Quentin. Nice job, man.
Thank you.
Quenton Nelson.
So again, they took in the second round. They had four picks in the second round. And one of them was Braden Smith, a guard from Auburn.
Yep.
And also Ryan Kelly coming back from injury at center there.
Out of
So,
Alabama
I mean, they are really
ago.
saying, okay, we need to run the ball, which will help us in the passing game, which will help us protect this guy named Andrew Luck and try and turn their fortunes around.
Look, Quentin's going to be great. I don't have any concerns about that. But this whole Colts thing hinges on whether or not Andrew Luck can be back to where he was before the shoulder surgery. You just have to be a little concerned that we're still not seeing him throw the football yet. Almost 16 months now
I agree.
after that surgery. All right, so the draft was over this weekend. Got the great series between the Sixers and Celtics starting tonight at 8. By the way, Cliff has the Sixers in 5 already. He's already going down that road, although he wanted Brett Brown fired. But that's a separate issue.
It's a separate
entirely.
issue, yeah.
Cliff is such a fan. He is. All right, we'll see what happens. We'll be talking about that and a bunch of other stuff when we come back with you tomorrow. Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio and ESPN News. Enjoy the games, and we'll see you tomorrow.
See ya.
Everyone in the neighborhood knew about Bobby. Bobby, the basketball boy, they called him. Bobby wanted to go pro someday, so he was always out in the driveway shooting hoops. But one day, his mom came out and told him,
Hey, your wife wants you to take out the trash?
His mom was visiting, and Bobby was a grown man. He had kind of missed his window. Plus, no one had ever seen him actually make a basket. But on the other hand, Bobby had heard how Geico could save him money on car insurance, so he switched and saved. So it was all good.